Yesterday at around 4 p.m., September 20th, 2016, apparently you had this man, Keith Lamont Scott, who's a husband. He's a father of 7 children. He's a family man. He was allegedly unarmed, disabled man who was killed while he was reading a book in his car. He wasn't messing with anybody. He was waiting to pick his son up off the bus from school, and the Charlotte, North Carolina police killed him. So that's what his daughter was saying on the viral Facebook live video over the Charlotte murder, so check it out. The victim's daughter, she said she was sleeping when she heard the gunshots. She come outside of her house, outside of her apartment, and she's live streaming, Facebook live streaming the aftermath. And it very much looks like a war zone. They have, the area cordoned off, and nobody's allowed to go there. Frankly, if that's my family, if that's my father, if that's my mother, if that's my cousin, if that's anybody that I know and love, I want to be right at the scene and I want to see what happened. I want to take pictures. I want to investigate the entire thing. You want me just to trust you guys? You guys, the gang, the boys in blue, y'all lie and y'all murder. So I don't trust anything that is coming out of their faces. So let's look at the details and let's see what we know versus what we don't know. Let's see, you have Keith Lamont Scott. Remember that name, Keith Lamont Scott. He's a disabled man. He's a husband to wife Rakia Scott and 7 children. And he's described as a great man, a great father. And he's waiting for his son to be picked up from school, off the bus. And he had been viewed there by witnesses several times. So he gets in his car, he waits, I guess, outside of the apartment, off to the side of the road. I couldn't find where the car was, where the vehicle was. With her Facebook Live, they cordoned, they blocked off the area. And so I couldn't actually see where the scene was. Where was his vehicle at? If it's off to the side and he's sitting peacefully in his car, not minding minding his own business, not messing with anybody, how did this escalate out of control? How did this get to where we're at now? Keith Lamont Scott, he was sitting in his car waiting for his son at the parking lot of the Village at College Downs apartment complex on the 9600 block on Old Concord Road in the University City Division in Charlotte, North Carolina. This happened just before 4 p.m. yesterday. Brentley Vinson, either Vinson or Vinison. He's a black man, and he's the one that had shot and killed Keith Lamont Scott, also a black man. So yesterday, September 20th, 2016, just before 4 p.m., 4 gunshots were heard by the neighbors in the Village at College Downs apartment complex on Old Concord Road in the University City Division in Charlotte, North Carolina, at the 9600 block. And how the shooting was said to have gone down, they said, "Hands up, he's got a gun, pop, 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 pop." 4 shots, and then he's dead, and that was it. Hands up, he's got a gun, pop, 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 pop. They said the same thing about Alton Sterling. There's a lot of similarities, actually, with the Tulsa shooting. So, according to the police, Brentley Vinson was at the parking lot of the Village of College Downs apartment complex on Old Concord Road in Charlotte, North Carolina, looking just before 4 p.m. for a different man. So, just like in Tulsa, just like with that one woman, that white woman who killed that black man in Tulsa, they were going after another person, another incident, and then they come up to Keith Lamont Scott sitting in a car. "Hey, what are you doing sitting in a car? I'm going to go ahead and mess with you." So they're chasing another man in order to serve another man with an outstanding warrant. And there's been no word on whether or not Brentley Vinson or the Charlotte police ever caught that man who they were allegedly after to begin with. So is there another murderer running around Charlotte, North Carolina? Is that what the outstanding warrant was for murder? Is there another criminal? Is there another murderer? I mean, besides Brentley Vinson, the Charlotte police officer who killed Keith Lamont Scott? Brentley Vinson is a 26-year-old black man. He was put on paid leave, so he gets a 2-week paid vacation. And even though Brentley Vinson has been on the force for 2 years, right, so he's a veteran, he's been on the force for a whole 2 years, he didn't think to turn on his body camera. So that's fantastic. Is that tampering with evidence? Is that official misconduct? I think he should be charged with something. He didn't have his body camera on, but the police in Charlotte, North Carolina have body cameras, and they have dashboard cameras. So Brentley Vinson, he didn't have the body camera turned on. He's looking for a whole other man, a whole different guy who has an outstanding warrant, and he's in plain clothes. So what about this makes any sense whatsoever? If he is the guy that was identified by the daughter on the Facebook live stream, then Brentley Vinson is the one that was wearing a red dress shirt with a vest over himself. So that could be a police officer. Yeah, I guess so. Or that could just be a psycho going on a rampage. It could be part of the mafia, right? They're all dressed up and they got a bulletproof vest on. Some kind of vest on over his red shirt. So, Dylan Storm Roof, he just goes into a church in South Carolina and just starts shooting black people up for no reason. So, Brentley Vinson is in plain clothes. He's been on the Charlotte Police Department for 2 years. This year, American cops have killed 788 people. They've executed almost 800 people this year, 1,146 last year. So, over 1,100 people were executed by cops last year. North Carolina is an open carry state. So, let's assume, I don't want to assume anything, okay? It's an open carry state. But if he had a gun, he's allowed to have a gun. So, whether or not he took the gun, was pointing it at somebody, but the daughter said that he didn't have a gun. He had a book. He was reading a book. North Carolina also voted for Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders, which means that even the Democrats in North Carolina are conservative. Charlotte ranks the lowest in the country for upward mobility, so poor children have next to no shot at getting ahead as adults. Poverty is a death sentence. And then it took 20 minutes before the ambulance got there. 20 minutes! When the ambulance is just right up the road. Did they just let him bleed out like they do a lot of times, like they did with that one guy in Louisville recently, a month ago? Like the black man in Tulsa? They shoot the man and then just let him lie there, bleeding all over the place? If he's a threat after you shot him and he's gone down, the threat has been subdued. Get that man some help. Show some humanity. But, as we all know, if any cop shows any humanity, that cop gets fired. Like in West Virginia when he didn't execute that one guy who was suicidal. Even though there was no bullets in his gun. He wanted y'all to kill him, and one of y'all did. But the one man didn't want to do it because he wanted to de-escalate the situation and save him. So the cops are not allowing an outside agency to review the case. Instead, they're going to go ahead and investigate themselves. Their own internal affairs bureau is investigating themselves. They won't see anything. And, ultimately, I saw this from the daughter's perspective, and that's the only evidence that I believe. That's the only evidence I believe. The cops will lie. The cops lie. That's what they do. Videotape doesn't lie, however. So, and that's interesting, too. Even though he wasn't wearing his body camera, other police officers were. So there is videotape of the shooting of this man. This man, Keith Lamont Scott. Keith Lamont Scott. R.I.P. Keith Lamont Scott. Say the man's name to the earth. He is still alive. Keith Lamont Scott. So we see, let's see, he doesn't have body camera on him, but the other cops have body cameras, and then there's also dashboard footage. So Keith Lamont Scott, was he as dangerous as the police are saying that he is? Well, let's see the video. Let's see the footage. The videotape either exonerates him, Keith Lamont Scott, or this Brentley guy, this Brentley Vinson. Who is the danger? Was he harassing the guy? Was he harassing him for no reason? Why was he even talking to the guy? You're trying to execute a warrant. Why don't you knock on the door that you're supposed to be knocking on? You just execute a warrant and you just go around talking to anybody and everybody? So they said that even though he wasn't wearing a body camera, the other cops were wearing body cameras, so there is videotape footage, and there's dashboard camera footage, but the police said they're not going to release the footage until after the investigation is over. And then they also said, well, what about that new law? North Carolina's legislature, which this is wonderful, they passed a law that said, and signed by Governor Pat McCrory, to restrict public access to police shooting videos. That's wonderful. They're allowed to murder people, but you're not allowed to ask for the videotape of them shooting. If they did good and they did right, release the video, and then he's exonerated. the court of public opinion, he is okay. But right now you're losing the court of public opinion, and for many reasons. But the law that actually Chief Kerr Putney is citing and withholding the video of the shooting doesn't take place until October. So that law of them restricting the video from the public doesn't even take effect. So do what the ACLU is telling you to do. In fact, you should just be forthcoming with information anyways. Tell us every piece of information that we need to know. So you had this Mr. Scott, what's his name again? Keith Lamont Scott. Keith Lamont Scott. He was the sixth person that was killed by the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department in 2016. So just this one police department has already killed 6 people. And the district attorney said that all the first 5 shootings are justified. Okay. So they've already killed 5 people, the same police department, and they've already justified themselves. They're going to investigate themselves while one of their own is taking a paid vacation. The shooting also comes a year after a mistrial in the voluntary manslaughter case against Charlotte Mecklenburg officer Randall Carrick, who killed Jonathan Farrell. And if you remember this case, this is an unarmed 24-year-old former college football player in 2013, wrecks his car. It's late at night. He needs some help. He doesn't know what to do, so he knocks on a white woman's door who is scared. Cops come up and just start shooting him. He had no gun. He posed no threat. He just had a car accident, just like that guy out in Tulsa. The car broke down. He needs help. If anything, the cops should have been like, hey, let us help you out. But no. It's a big black man. Let's be afraid of him to the point where we're just killing him even though he did nothing wrong. What happened with that case? It was a mistrial, and they're not going to retrial it. The state declined to seek a retrial against Randall Carrick, so he got away with it. So this is not the first time that Charlotte Mecklenburg has killed a black man for no reason, and then they buried the case, right? Did he get charged with a crime? Did he go to jail, this Randall Carrick? And just like this other guy, the murderer, the guy who murdered Mr. Scott, he's not going to go to jail either, which is exactly what should happen. He should be charged just like any other citizen out there. Make him sit in jail so that way he's not roaming around, possibly killing somebody else. Give a bond, make sure he pays a bond. You know, what, a $500,000 bond? 10% it, okay. If you could find $50,000, we'll let you out. And just treat him like any other, person out there. And then try him and then let a jury of his peers say whether or not he's guilty or not. So the fact that the state declined to seek a retrial after Randall Carrick, it's a mistrial, so that means you all messed up your trial. It was a mistrial, the trial's messed up. Get another trial. Why would you say, well, mistrial, that's good enough for you? That's not good enough. That's no answer. A jury didn't come back with an answer. So the state of North Carolina needs to retrial Randall Carrick, and then they need to go after, they need to charge this other murderer, Brentley Vinson. Charged him for the murder of Keith Lamont Scott, a family man, a husband to Rakia Scott and 7 children, a good family man who wasn't doing anything. He wasn't harming anybody. He wasn't even the guy that they were chasing. So this is amazing. They're chasing a whole other guy, just like in Tulsa when Betty Shelby, the white woman, shot and killed 40-year-old Terrence Crutcher. So the Charlotte police didn't get the guy that they were going after, but they did murder a different man, a good man, a disabled father who was just sitting in his car waiting to pick his son up from the bus after school. And why are they serving arrest warrants in plain clothes? That makes me mad. How do you know that guy's even a cop? Cops should be painted bright neon blue and have loud blaring sirens with cop written right on them. And they should identify themselves. Cops should be easily identifiable. They want a monopoly of violence because they're the Leviathan, they're the all-powerful state. Okay, fine. Then we need to know that it's actually you, that it's actually a cop. Anybody can just run up on you, say that they're the police, and then we're just supposed to listen to their word? There are people that pretend to be the police in order to victimize the public. And so if they're not dressing the part and they're attacking you, wolf-packing you, just running up on you, coming up on you from out of nowhere when you've done nothing wrong and you're just sitting there in your car. What are you supposed to think? Stand your ground says you got a right to shoot the guy that comes at you from out of nowhere who's trying to intimidate you. You don't have to lose your ground. You're going to stand your ground. I'm going to stand right here. Trayvon Martin was the one who had the right to stand his ground against George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman was stalking Trayvon. The LMPD, they didn't identify themselves when they attacked me in December 2012. They also said that they were going after another incident. They were going after a bank robbery. And then they changed the story to there was a guy that they was chasing behind them. So they're going after this other guy. They're going after a bank robbery. And then I just was crossing the street when they were doing a donut in the middle of the street. And all of a sudden, that bank robbery and that witness or that, perpetrator, all of a sudden, those incidents don't matter. Just like in Tulsa, just like in Charlotte, you have another incident. You have a warrant you're trying to put out. You're trying to catch a man with an outstanding warrant, and instead you're victimizing somebody else in the pathway that's in your path. And so I was crossing the street. They do a donut, and I looked both ways. They were just sitting there. It's just a plain white car. The guy's wearing a baseball hat, and he's wearing flannel. He jumps out of the car in the middle of the road. First, he tries to run over me, tells me, get the fuck out of the road, right? Just like professional cops do, cussing at me and carrying on, I didn't look at them. I was walking this way. I thought I was getting jumped, frankly, by just some random thugs, some white redneck, white trash thugs. Crossing the road, they were almost running into me. Get the fuck out of the road, and I was like, fuck you. And then they spun around, and they stopped right in front of me in the middle of the intersection and jumped out. And it was a baseball cap and a flannel. At no point in time did they identify themselves. They're driving a plain white car. He's got a baseball hat. He's got a flannel. I only have seconds to react. This guy is a thug. This guy is a white trash thug who's trying to attack me just because for whatever reason, because he wants to. Because he wants to be a sadistic psychopath who just wants to hurt somebody else. So there's no way you can tell if it's plain clothes who the person is if you don't clearly identify yourself. And, there is videotape. There's videotape of the incident or of the aftermath, which, if Brentley Vinson did or did not kill Keith Lamont Scott, he will be vindicated or justified or not. Be forthcoming with information. Tell us what is going on. Settle the city down. Show the videotape that shows Keith Lamont Scott being as dangerous as the police say that he was. Show us the videotape. The ACLU has demanded that it be released, but why the secrecy? Why the secrecy? The new law doesn't even go into effect until October. So I got some major questions. Who's the other guy that they were looking for? How come we're protecting this guy's name? Who has an outstanding warrant for their name that the cops are looking for, but we've stopped looking for him? We don't even care about it no more? Is there another murderer roaming around the streets besides Brentley Vinson that the people of Charlotte need to look out for? They're chasing another guy, just like that Betty Shelby who murdered the 40-year-old Terrence Crutcher in Tulsa. Also, the guy was shot 4 times. Does 4 times that sound like self-defense to you? Keith Lamont Scott was shot 4 times. And they're wearing plain clothes. Then look at how the cops act in the aftermath. It looks like a war zone, like a bunch of entitled, uniformed Nazis. Officers saw the man. This is what they're admitting to. And when the police version, what I find useful out of the police version is what they're willing to admit to. So that way we can see the limits of their lives. Officers said that they saw Mr. Scott, and they call him a subject, right? Subject of the crown of the king. Officers say that they saw Mr. Scott get out of the car, and then they said he had a gun. He got out of the car with a gun, and then he got back into the car. And then the officers approached, the man exited the car with the gun again. So if I got a gun, I'm in the car, I'm out of the car, and then I come back out again, and then they kill him. They shoot him 4 times, and then they said that they immediately request a medic and began performing CPR immediately on him right afterwards. I don't believe that. It took 20 minutes for the ambulance to even get there. The chief said he does not know if the gun was loaded. So they don't know if the gun was loaded. They also don't know if the gun was legally owned by him. Are you sure it was his gun? Are you sure it wasn't planted afterwards? So we don't know if it was actually his, right? We don't know if the gun was loaded. And then he also says this: I don't know if he definitively pointed the weapon specifically towards the officer. So if you just have a gun in your hand, you're just waving around a gun in your hand like the cops are doing, right? The cops have guns and they're waving around. So they could be shot, right? They had a gun. They were waving it around. I thought you might have shot the man in ricochet and then got one of my people. So you pulled a gun out, you brandished a firearm. That's it. That's all she wrote, right? That's all that's necessary. If there is a gun being pointed at him, that's the only way that I think that they get away with this. But if they did all that, I still wonder, are you harassing a man that didn't need to be harassed at all? And if you're being harassed by a cop who are not there to protect and serve you, they're there to kill you. That's what they're there for, to murder you, to find trouble. That's all they do, 24 hours, find trouble, kill you, hurt you, lie, and defend each other. That's all they do. They're not here to help it. They'll defend the corporations, the politicians, and the bankers, and, the wealthy people. But if you feel like you're being threatened, if somebody told me, there was a white guy that actually said, it was on Jimmy Dore, but he said that he was coming around the opposite. When he sees a car, if he's driving down the road, the 55, speed limit, driving down the road, and he sees a cop coming the opposite direction, he's nervous. So just a cop being in the area, they are dangerous. They are dangerous thugs, and they're a gang, and they don't snitch on each other. And if you're a good person and you do say, well, that guy did do something bad, well, then you'll get fired. So they could easily plant evidence. Once everything calms down, they'll lie because that's what they do. It's a police state, the NSA, Patriot Act, right? The grand jury will fail to indict, just like with Jonathan Farrell. The murderer will go free, only worse, he'll get to keep his job, being paid day to day on the taxpayer's dime, and that's a bad investment, paying people to murder us. And they're a liar, they're a gang, they cover up for each other. Vinison should be arrested, charged with a crime, put in jail, let a jury exonerate him if he's innocent. Treat this just like any other murder. If the criminal justice system works, put him through the criminal justice system. Let's see a jury of his peers say, you did right, you did good, you're free to go. That's more justification than just a bunch of Nazis, well, nah, I'm going to let him go just because I feel like it. We went ahead and investigated ourselves, and we did no wrongdoing. So I believe his daughter. I don't believe the police. They believe that they're a gang and that they lied. That might not have been a book. I think she just said that because she's just speculating what could have been in his hands that would have made them think that he deserved to be shot. I also think that she should have been allowed to go up to the car and videotape the scene afterwards and see where his body was and where the gunshot was, see what was in his hands, wasn't in his hands, see if there was a book or wasn't a book. Then we would have more definitive, proof of what the hell's going on. Instead, we're just supposed to what? Stay calm and believe what they're telling us? I'm not going to stay calm. I don't believe a single word that comes out of your mouth. Show me the videotape or shut up. It's a war zone. It's them versus us, the government versus the people. They could have easily planted something, and now they're covering their tracks up. So a videotape, we would see the initial confrontation. We would see if all this even matters. We'll see the aftermath. We'll see something. A gun, a book, where he was, where his body was. Vinison should be charged with tampering with evidence for not having his body camera on or official misconduct. And it should be on the whole time. The body camera should be on the whole time that they're on duty. Or off duty. In Louisville, if you're off duty and you see a crime, you have to go arrest them. So 24/7, you need that body camera on any time that you think that you're going to be doing some violence, doing some police work. You need that video camera on to vindicate you. If you're the hero, if you're the good guys, then show that videotape. Let us see how heroic you were. I want good cops. I want people that are out there doing right, doing the good thing, protecting and serving us. But that's why it's in quotations, to protect and serve. Oh, yeah, to protect and serve. Yeah, because it's bull crap. So especially if he's in a plain clothes outfit. He's in plain clothes. Where's the videotape? With my case, there wasn't no videotape. They said there's videotape they lie. They lied at the trial. They lie. That's what they do. So if you're going to go around the public and you're going to be a cop and you're going to go help the public and do this and do that, have the video camera. We understand it's a dangerous job. We understand that, things, you have to, sometimes things pop off in a few moments, in a few seconds. So if there's something that you might not have done perfect, but your intent was to go after the bad guys, get the bad guys, subdue them, and do your job, we will love you. We will back you up. But if you're a criminal, if you're a crook, and if you go around murdering people, then make sure you don't have that camera on. Make sure you have plain clothes on. Make sure you get all your buddies and your friends to cover up your crimes. Don't release the video camera. Don't let us know what's going on. And then a day later, have the police chief come out and just repeat the lies that you told him. If you are a criminal, if you're guilty, you know, if you're a good man, if you're an honest person, then what do you got to hide? Why the secrecy? We need transparency with the government, and it's the opposite right now. We don't have a right to privacy, but they do. We got to be transparent, but they don't. I think we need to switch this. We need to switch this around. The cops need to be either on our side or just get rid of them. Just get rid of them. They're going around hurting people and destroying people. No, we need citizen councils, or we could police ourselves, okay? Cops are out of control. They're absolutely out of hand and out of control. And this case, I want to see what's going on with this case. I could care less what the aftermath of what they're doing. They're absolutely right to rebel against the government. They're absolutely right, and things will change for the better in Charlotte because of the riots. Martin Luther King, he said, riots are the language of the unheard. They haven't been heard. Truth and justice, people are being victimized by the police on the reg, and they're not being heard. So, whereas I can condemn violence and riots and destruction of personal property, yeah, that's wrong. But in the same vein, the initial thing, like, you know, what was that? That one guy that got his spine severed in Baltimore, that's wrong too. And if you're going to kill people outright, you're going to murder people outright, and then you're going to cover it up, the people have every right in the world to rebel because you're not actually protecting and serving them. You're killing them, and you're covering that crime up. So that's my take on what's going on in Charlotte so far. It's 2:42, September 21st, almost 24 hours after the initial murder of Mr. Scott, Keith Lamont Scott. R.I.P. Keith Lamont Scott. R.I.P. And vote Jill Stein 2016. She's for demilitarization of the police, to stop the war on drugs, to stop all these wars anyways, and a whole bunch more. But R.I.P. Keith Lamont Scott. R.I.P.